Creating a new document. To start with, open Photoshop and navigate to File New. Or use the keyboard shortcut Command-Control+N. A new document dialog box will appear. Name your project Glass Apple and set the width to 297 mm, the height to 210 mm, and the resolution to 300 pixels inch. Click Create to confirm. Setting the background color. Press D and U keyboard to set the foreground and background color to black and white. Now, locate the two color swatches in the toolbar. Click on the foreground color swatch to open the color picker. In the color picker, enter the hex code number 053967 in the text field and click OK to apply. Press Alt-Option+Delete to fill the canvas with the foreground color. Adding a light effect. Create a new layer. Go to Layer New Layer, or Shift+Command-Control+N. Name the layer Light. Select the Gradient tool, G, from the toolbar. In the Options bar, check the Radial Gradient and the Reverse box. Open the Gradient Editor by clicking on the Gradient swatch in the Options bar. In the Gradient Editor, open the Basic folder and choose the Foreground to Background Gradient. Click on the top left stop and set the opacity to 0%. Click OK to apply the changes. Drag the gradient from the top left corner to the bottom right corner of the canvas to apply the gradient. Duplicate the background. Select the background layer in the Layers panel. Duplicate the background layer by going to Layer Duplicate Layer, or use the shortcut Command-Control+J. Name the duplicated layer Floor. Drag the floor layer by holding the left button on your mouse, and positioning it on top of the light layer in the Layers panel. Select the Free Transform tool, Command-Control+T. Hold Shift, and then drag the top center handle of the bounding box down to around 1/3 of the canvas size. Press Enter or Return to apply the transformation. Complete the background. First, create a new layer, Shift+Command-Control+N, and name it Light Floor. Grab the Gradient tool, G. Hold down the Shift key and drag the gradient from center left to center right on the canvas. Create a clipping mask, Command-Control+Alt-Option+G. Open the Free Transform tool, shortcut, Command-Control+T, and drag the top center handle down until it covers the floor, and then drag the center right handle to stretch the image. Finally, hit Enter Return to apply the changes. Place the apple. Go to File, Place Embedded Apple 1.jpg, then hit Enter Return. Use your favorite selection tool and select the apple. Alternatively, you can go to Menu, Select, Subject. And then go to Select, Select and Mask to see more options for fine-tuning the selection. Refine the edges of the image as desired. Create a layer mask by clicking the Add Layer Mask button at the bottom of the Layers panel. Or, if you are using the Select and Mask panel, set the output to Layer Mask. Make the apple look transparent. Let's add the mask to the Smart Object. Choose Layer, New, Smart Object from the top menu. Or right-click on the apple layer and choose to convert to Smart Object. To make the apple look transparent, we have to blend its color with the background. We'll use the Hue Saturation tool to do that. Go to Image, Adjustments, Hue Saturation. Or press Command-Control+U. Check the Colorize box and set the hue to 210, saturation to 60, and lightness to -10. Click OK to apply the changes. Go to Image, Adjustments, Levels. Set the midtones value to 0.9 and click OK. Place the coral reef image. We've completed all the initial layers. Now it's time to start building the underwater habitat. But first, let's get all the pictures we need, starting with the coral reef image. Go to File, Place Embedded, and select the coral reef image. Go to Select, Subject, then go to Select, Select and Mask. Enhance the selection by adjusting the settings. Use the Refine Edge Brush tool, R, to fine-tune the coral reef edges. And use the Brush tool, B, to reveal the sand around the coral reef. Set the output to Layer Mask and then click OK to apply the changes. Place the coral reef within the apple. Open the Free Transform tool. Hold Shift and reduce the image size to fit within the apple shape. Click to activate the Layer Mask thumbnail. Using a hard edge brush, B, paint over the sand area to create a crisp contour of the sand within the apple. Transform the coral reef layer into a smart object. Now, hold Command-Control and click on the Apple 1 layer to select it. With the Apple 1 layer selected, click on the coral reef layer and add a layer mask. Adding the water surface image. Go to File, Place Embedded, and select the water surface image, then press Enter Return. Grab the elliptical marquee tool, M, and create an elliptical selection covering the top center of the image. Then create a layer mask. Using the free Transform tool, reduce the image size and use the handles to rotate it to fit the apple. Press Enter Return. Go to the Layers panel, right-click outside the thumbnails area and click Rasterize Layer. Then right-click on the mask thumbnail and click Apply Layer Mask. Adding a second apple. Go to File, Place Embedded, apple2.jpg. Go to Select, Subject, then go to Select, Select and Mask. Refine the selection, and create a mask. Go to Layer, Smart Object, Convert to Smart Object, or right-click on the layer's thumbnail and choose Convert to Smart Object. Drag the Apple 2 layer underneath the Apple 1 layer. Use the free Transform tool to resize and rotate the image. Finally, duplicate it by clicking on the Apple 2 thumbnail. Hold Shift, and drag it on top of the Apple 1 layer. Create a clipping mask. And set the layer's opacity to 25%. Reshaping the water surface. Hide the apples for a moment by clicking on the eye icon in the Apple 2 and Apple 2 copy layers. Click on the water surface layer. Go to Filter, Liquify. Grab the Forward Warp tool, W, and start creating an undulation around the edges. Click OK when you are happy with the result. To refine even more, use the free Transform tool. Right-click over the image to choose the Warp tool, then, drag the grid points to transform the image. Finally, duplicate the mask. Hold Alt-Option and click on the Apple mask thumbnail, then drag the duplicated mask onto the water surface layer. Make adjustments. Next, we will adjust the color by shifting the greenish hues to a bluish color to make the image a more cohesive look. Still in the water surface layer, right-click on the layer's thumbnail and choose Convert to Smart Object, or go to Layer, Smart Object, Convert to Smart Object. Open the Hue Saturation Adjustment layer. Check the Colorize box and set the hue to 208, saturation to 55, and lightness to 3. Click OK to apply the changes. Create a black and white layer. Now it is time to tweak the values and make everything pop. We're gonna add a layer to turns the whole image black and white. It's gonna help us better see the tonal values of the image and not get distracted by color. Create a new layer on top of the layer stack and name it Tone. Fill it with black. Hit D in your keyboard and then press Option Alt plus Delete. In the Layers panel, change the blending mode to color. Adjusting lightness and darkness. Now let's balance out the lightness and darkness by making it black and white. It's easier to spot where we need to add more or less light and shadow. Click on the Apple 1 layer. Open the levels, Command-Control+L, and set the inputs to 17, 01, 174. Click OK. Click on the coral reef layer. Open the curves, Command-Control+M, and adjust the input to 56 and output 76. Click OK. Click on the water surface layer. Open the levels and set the inputs to 26, 1.05, 222. Click OK. Hide the tones layer by clicking the eye icon. Click on the Apple 1. Hit Command-Control+U and set the saturation to -29. Click OK. Adjusting the coral reef layer. Click on the coral reef layer. Go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, Photo Filter. On the Properties panel, click on Filter and choose Cooling Filter 82 from the drop-down menu. Set the density at 30%. Check the Preserve Luminosity box and click to Clip to Layer icon at the bottom of the Properties panel. Go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, Color Lookup. Open the 3D LUT file and choose Night from Day Cube. Clip the layers, Command-Control+Alt-Option+G. On the Layers panel, set the opacity to 70%. Grab a soft brush, B, click on the Color Lookup mask to activate it, and start painting over the image to create highlights effect. Adding shadows and highlights. Create a new layer on top of the coral reef layer. Clip the layers, Command Control plus Alt Option plus G, and name it Shadows. Set the blending mode to multiply and change the foreground color to number 072340. Grab a soft tip brush, B, and start painting the shadows from the coral reef on the sand. Create a new layer. Name it Highlights and clip it. Set the opacity to 55% and change the blending mode to Overlay. Use a basic white color to paint the highlights, enhancing the image. Make a new layer named Shadows on top of Apple 1, and set the blending mode to Soft Light. Set the opacity to 68% and clip it. Set the foreground color to number 112E4C. Use a soft brush, B, and paint on the bottom, below the sand and right side of the apple. Create another new layer and name it Highlights. Change the blending mode to Soft Light, and set the opacity to around 68%. Clip it, and set the foreground color to number CADEF4. Use a soft brush, B, to paint mostly the left side and top of the apple. Adjusting the Apple II image. Unhide the tone layer and the Apple II layer by clicking on the eye icon on the Layers panel. Open the levels by pressing Command Control plus L. In the Levels Adjustment dialog box, adjust the input levels to 13, 0.83, and 203 by moving the sliders or inputting the values in the input fields. Click OK to apply the changes. After you have made the adjustments to the levels, hide the tone layer. Next, select the Apple II layer and open the Hue Saturation adjustment by pressing the shortcut Command Ctrl plus U. In the Hue Saturation panel, reduce the saturation to -45, and click OK to apply the changes. Adding shadows to the Apple II. Create a new layer on top of the Apple II layer, and name it Shadows. Change the blending mode to multiply from the layer panel. Also adjust the opacity of the layer to 65%. Next, clip the Shadows layer to the Apple II layer by holding down Command Control plus Alt Option plus G. Set the foreground color to a dark red color. You can do this by using the color picker in the toolbar. Using a soft brush tool, B, start painting the shadows on the apple. Make sure to vary the size and opacity of the brush to create a more natural looking shadow. Refine with the Camera Raw filter. Let's use Camera Raw to convert the image to black and white and adjust the settings such as contrast, highlights, whites, blacks, and clarity to enhance the overall appearance. Go to Filter Camera Raw or press Shift plus Command Control plus A. In the Camera Raw panel, click on the Edit button in the top right corner and select Blank and White. Enter the following settings: increase the contrast to 10, highlights to 20, whites to 60, decrease the blacks to -46 and set the clarity to 5. Click on the black and white button before clicking OK to apply the changes. Dodging and burning. Create a new layer and name it Shadows and Highlights. Check Use Previous Layer to create clipping mask, and set the mode to Overlay. Check Fill with Overlay Neutral Color. Click OK. Grab the Dodge tool by pressing O in your keyboard and set the range to highlights and exposure to 25%. Start painting the highlights on the top and front of the Apple II image. Grab the Burn tool by pressing Shift plus O, and set the range to midtones and exposure to 22%. Enhance the shadows using the Burn tool. Edit the Apple II copy layer. Unhide the Apple II copy layer in the Layers panel by clicking on the eye icon next to the layer. Open the Hue Saturation adjustment by pressing Command Control plus U. In the dialog box, change the lightness value to -26 and click OK to apply the changes. This will darken the overall color of the apple. Next, go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur and set the radius to 6 pixels. Click OK to apply the blur. This will create a slight blur around the edges of the apple, making it appear more natural. To finish, use the Move tool, V, to slightly drag up to reposition the Apple II copy layer. This will add a subtle distortion effect to the final image. Add shadows underneath the apples. On the Layers panel, create a new layer on top of the background layer. Name it Shadows Apple. Select the Elliptical Marquee tool, M, and create an elliptical selection. Fill the selected area with a dark blue number 092035 and click OK. Open the Free Transform tool, resize, reposition and adjust the angle of the elliptical shape you've created, so that it appears as shadows under the Apple II layer. Go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian blur and set the radius to 20 pixels, then click OK. Adjust the opacity of the shadows layer to your preference. Duplicate the shadow layer. Hold Alt Option in your keyboard, and drag the shadow apple layer underneath the glass apple layer. Repeat this process again, but this time, change the blending mode for the new duplicated layer to multiply. This will make the image darker. Use the free transform tool to reduce the size and position the layer underneath the glass apple. Duplicate the layer again and drag it underneath the Apple II layer. You will now have a total of 4 shadow layers. Add the light reflection. Create a new layer and name it reflection. Grab the elliptical marquee tool, M, hold Shift and create a circular selection. Set the foreground and background color to black and white respectively by pressing D in your keyboard. Select the gradient tool, G, from the toolbar. In the options bar, check radial gradient, and uncheck the reverse box. Open the gradient editor in the options bar. Open the basic folder in the gradient editor presets and choose the foreground to background gradient, and apply it to the selection. Finish the effect. Use the free transform tool to adjust the angle and stretch the image as desired. Position the reflection under the glass apple layer. On the layer panel, change the blending mode to color dodge. Next, go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian blur and set the radius to 25 pixels to give a soft blur to the reflection. Then, go to Filter, Blur, Motion blur and set the distance to 565 pixels and angle to 90 degrees to give a sense of motion and realism. Finally, adjust the opacity of the reflection layer if necessary to fine-tune the final look. Add fish to the scene. First, create a group layer that is positioned above all other layers in the Layers panel, but immediately below the tone layer. Go to Layer, New, Group. Name it Fish and click OK. Go to File, Place Embedded and select the desired fish images. Once the fish images are placed, reduce their size as needed, and position them where desired within the composition. Hold the Shift key, click on the first and last fish layers to select them, and drag all the layers, placing inside the newly created group layer. Complete the underwater scene. Add bubbles. Go to File, Place Embedded and choose the bubbles image. Change the blending mode to screen. Adjust the image using the levels adjustment to fine-tune the brightness and contrast of the bubbles. Drag the bubbles layer behind the coral reef layer, so they appear behind the reef. To add a finishing touch, go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, Photo Filter. Choose Cooling Filter 82, and add it on top of the fish group. Add a shiny effect to the apple. Scroll down to the Apple I layer on the Layers panel. Duplicate the Apple I layer, by holding J and click and dragging the duplicated layer, placing on top of the fish layer group. Convert the duplicated layer to a smart object by going to Layer, Smart Object, Convert to Smart Object. Rename the layer Shine Apple. Now, change the blending mode to Soft Light. This will enhance the effect. Adjusting the tonal values. Unhide the tone layer. Navigate to the Shine Apple layer and select it. Press Command-Control+M to open the curves adjustments. Adjust the output to 213 and input to 194 to increase the brightness of the layer. Click OK. Hide the tone layer. Next, hit Command-Control+U to open the hue saturation. Set the hue to 0, saturation to -39, lightness to -8, and click OK. These adjustments will give the image a more vibrant appearance while also fine-tuning the colors to give a polished look. Paint the highlights. Hold Command-Control, and click on the Shine Apple layer to select it. Then add a layer mask. Create a new layer and name it Apple Highlights. Grab the layer mask thumbnail from the Shine Apple layer and place it onto the Apple Highlights layer. Change the blending mode to color dodge. Paint the highlights over the apple using a soft tip brush, B, and white color. Repeat previous steps on the Apple II layer to add an additional highlight. Create a new layer, set blending mode to hard light and paint over the image. Add bouncing light to Apple II. Create a new layer on top of the Apple II layer and name it Bouncing Light. Hold Command-Control and click on the Apple II thumbnail to select the image. Go back to the Bouncing Light layer and add a layer mask. Change the blending mode for the layer to Linear Dodge. Set the foreground color to a light blue color. Grab a soft brush and start painting the bouncing light on the bottom part of the Apple II. Fine-tuning the composition. Click on the layer below the tone layer and press Shift plus Command Control plus Alt Option plus E. This shortcut will copy and merge the layers. Transform the merged layer into a smart object by going to Layer, Smart Object, Convert to Smart Object. Go to Filter, Camera Raw Filter. In the Camera Raw window, click black and white button and enter the following settings: highlights -16, shadows 10, whites -20, blacks -25, and clarity 20. Click the black and white button again and then click OK. Save your final image and that's it. I hope you liked and enjoyed our tutorial. For more information visit digitalartcreative.com.